South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is still delivering the State of the Nation address there to the Parliament. Now let's get further some insights into his address now as we bring on Peter Major, a mining investment expert and director at Mergence Corporate Solutions. Good evening to you there in Cape Town, sir, and thanks for coming through. That was President Cyril Ramaphosa raising the glass and showing the made in South Africa's drinking glass from which he just took some water in his address. That's how pride. Last year he said he wore shoes made in South Africa, and South Africa now can proudly produce its own drinking glasses. What are the key points of this presidential address so far for you, Peter?
Well, there is more in this SONA address than we've probably heard in 20 years. And when I say more, I mean substantial, something real, something tangible. I don't think we all like some of it. The big thing is they're declaring the electricity problems we have a state of disaster. That does give the government a lot of unfettered powers that we saw were very misused during COVID. Now, Mr. Ramaphosa was part of that in COVID, so he says we're appointing an electricity manager, an electricity minister, and there's going to be a special auditor appointed as well to oversee all the spending. So I think they will manage the spending better than COVID, but people are still asking, why did it get this bad? Why did you wait so long to address it? And addressing it this way, is it really necessary? You know, you've put up all the blocking legislation. You've put up all the cadre deployment. You know, you people are responsible for this. Now you want a state of disaster that lets you do what you want without going through proper screening channels and approval. So I think most of the nation trusts Mr. Ramaphosa than they have all our previous presidents, at least up after Mr. Mandela. But it does give the nation, gives the government pretty unfettered power here. What else is important? He's acknowledged our railroads, our infrastructure is just about as bad. It's going to get a special attention 2, 3, and 4. But again, in the headlines today in the newspaper, we're closing down another 3,000 kilometers of railroad. And we did this about 15 years ago. You know, we're closing it down, and yet we say we don't want to leave rural communities abandoned. I could go on a few more things about the speech. I didn't even get to the mining section yet. I think that's at the end of the talk. But we heard about that from the president a few days ago at the Indaba.
But again, yes. But again, so let's just talk about the big headlines out of the mining in Indaba. Yes, Mr. President delivered an address, and I'm sure you were there. This is your community. You're an investment expert over several decades. So, what are the big takeaways from mining in Indaba that spoke to the key economic challenges that South Africa needs to resolve, and very urgently? Transnet, yes, transportation, logistics. Then you've got energy, crunching energy crisis on the other hand.
You know what? If I can think of a proper analogy, it's government policies and actions that have led to all these various disasters in the country. Now they're coming up with additional policies, legislation, and plans and actions to try and address it. But it's just more and more layers of burdensome legislation and paperwork. And it's like you put a whole bunch of weights in your star athlete's backpack, and now he's tripping and falling down year after year, and you try and give him a little better diet, you give him a little more time to sleep, you give him a little better pair of shoes to wear. But all he really needs is take those loads out of his backpack. You know, take away cadre deployment. Take away legalized extortion, where you have to have 30% partners to embark on business. Take away extortion mafias where they get 70% of whatever you spend. You know, there's only a few actions that really needed to be done to really improve what's going on here. But Mr. Ramaphosa is doing more in this SONA and in the last 6 months than he has in the last 6 years. And he's done more positive in the last 6 months than probably all the positives of the last 15, 20 years. So we are making headway, but slower, and we could go so much faster and get much bigger impetus in fixing these problems that were all government made.
Well, so President, they said they need to reorganize the government, and the ENC's election is just around the corner. So how much of these political optics are going to get into business and investments ahead of 2024, some of the elections you have, broadly speaking, in South Africa?
That's an excellent point. Yeah. What actions are going to result in mining and other investment coming into this country? Well, you just have to ask all the people at the Indaba, what do you want to see here to bring in money? They want to see the electricity crisis fixed. That was created by the ANC. They want it fixed. They don't care who fixes it, but unless they see good steps going to fix it with tangible results, they're going to hold off on their investment. Unless they see changes in the employment policy and cadre deployment, nobody's going to start a business here if they are told who to hire, how to hire. And you never hear the word meritocracy in any of these SONAs, in any of the mining minister's speeches. You never hear meritocracy. That was tossed out in 1994, and they seem to be determined not to bring meritocracy back. People must get appointed on meritocracy. We don't want to hear about ministers that are really committed. Just commitment is not enough. You have to be competent. You have to be experienced. You know, lots of people can be committed. Committed to what? Making it work? You know, have they got the talent, the experience? So mining, what is the commitment to have a cadastral system? We've heard about this for 6 years. Okay, we're told it is going to be bought now, but they don't give a date when it's going to be bought. They don't say who's the team who's going to load all the data. So it's not specific enough. I don't know why we have to take these baby steps when we are in a state of disaster.
Okay, so when we talk about unemployment at about 33%, and the government's looking at a wage deal with the workers 3%, some folks are asking for more, and the International Monetary Fund and other agencies have flagged wage as a major fiscal risk for South Africa. How does South Africa balance the demand by workers for higher wages and a very high unemployment level at the same time?
That is the big problem why we have high unemployment, Boson, because people are not paid according to productivity. People are paid according to union and cadre affiliation. They're paid according to political affiliation. They're hired according to political affiliation. And yes, we have to break that. We can't keep giving above inflation increases, and the productivity, it hasn't gone flat. It's gone down. Our productivity is at a 15, 20-year low. It keeps dropping. You know, we're at number 182 out of 182 ports and harbors on productivity. So I agree, you can't just start cutting people's wages 50% because their productivity's fallen 50%, but you can start tying a bigger part of their pay to their productivity, to their production. And yeah, we've just had blanket increases to pacify the mobs for one more voting day. And it's breaking the country. It's demoralizing. And there's a mafia under every minister's department who's responsible for who gets hired and who gets fired. That's how they're going to balance this productivity and wage, is addressing the underlying causes and getting rid of all the mafiosos that have been created and strengthened these last 20, 25 years.
Let's talk about tackling crime. What's the state of that in South Africa right now? What more needs to be done? Mr. President says he's going to employ more folks into the police. Are we seeing very urgent and critical steps in that, despite the problems, unemployment, the need for further wages, the flooding disaster last year and all of that? Folks still need to stay safe in the morning, in the afternoon, and overnight. So what's the real situation on the ground for you, Peter Major?
Look, do we need more police? We need more police who will do their job. As far as absolute numbers, we probably have too many police. And I've seen comparisons and graphs that the more police we have, the more crime goes up. And it looks too reliable, too set in place to just discount as an aberration. So to say we're going to go hire another 10 or 20,000 police, I would rather see them hire 10 or 20,000 qualified police cadets as they let go of 10 or 20,000 unqualified and unproven police personnel. We got to go for quality. We can't keep going on numbers because our budget deficit is exploding and the productivity is falling and crime is rising. So I agree, we do need some special kind of police division in the meantime to get electricity stabilized, because we've had 20 years of cadre deployment and corruption and infiltration of mafias all over our electricity sector. And we are going to need Army and special police. But let's weed out the bad police as well. Let's not just keep adding police on top of police. And if you leave the bad ones there, the sabotage continues.
Okay, so we're going to conclude this near where we started as far as energy crisis is concerned. So what's the way out really for South Africa as far as these rolling blackouts concerned? I'm not sure anyone's comfortable that South Africa's economy will be impacted for another 1 year or 2 years of rolling blackouts.
Yes, but I will give President Ramaphosa kudos for some of the things he said that make sense and that can be measured. Special police and Army to help root out corruption and crime at all the power plants. Taking off any kind of limit on private power generation. Encouraging and enabling provinces, federal government, and municipalities to buy generation from homeowners. Because you got 60 million people in this country. If you just get 1 or 2 million of them generating their own electricity, selling it back in the grid, that will have an immediate effect. And buying electricity at competitive rates instead of below market rates. So opening the door, forcing Eskom, assisting Eskom to hook up the independent power producers that have already been building it. A lot of this is undoing the damage of the last 15 years that was intentionally put in place by the same government. But at least they're acknowledging it and they're starting to undo it. I think in 6 months, we're going to see some pretty significant results. We're going to be up from 53%. I think we could be as high as 60% availability in 6 months with these measures.
Okay, great. So if all this can be done, do you think South Africa will still be able to manage to escape a lower economic growth, at least for this year and the next? So how soon do you think things will begin to pace out and begin to see a major, a very steady upward movement in GDP in growth levels?
I honestly think there's a 50-50 chance, and it should be better than that. But I'm worried if commodity prices come down or the world goes in any kind of recession. And I don't call growth of 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. That is not growth. That's a statistical aberration. It could just as easily be minus 0.3. I would say growth is 1% or more, and that's just poor growth, but it's real. So I think there's a 50-50 chance we will see 1% growth this year. At best, a 50-50 chance. Maybe we got a 60% chance next year. But those are not great, and that's just 1%. We should be looking at 3 or 4% if we didn't have such a messed up political economic structure. So yeah, 50% that we will have any growth worth registering on the radar screen this year and next. 50-50 is my best call.
Well, thank you, as always, for those insights. Quite a very robust conversation digging into President Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address tonight. Thank you so much, Peter Major, mining investment expert and director at mining with Emergence Corporate Solutions in Cape Town. Thank you so much. Enjoy your evening.